Hello, AP Seminarites. So I'm recording this. I only have 5 minutes, so I'm going to move very quickly. If you have any questions, send them to me on Remind. All right, so row 2 of the AP Seminar rubric is all about analyzing arguments. And notice this is not your argument. This is you analyzing the arguments of your sources. So I'm actually not going to go over the rubric too much because, again, I only have 5 minutes, but you can definitely check it out. All right, here's a breakdown of the rubric. If you want to achieve mastery, which we all do because we strive for mastery, you must describe the arguments and conclusions present in the sources. 2, position the sources in conversation with one another. And that's really it. It seems kind of simple, especially compared to the 4 criteria that I gave you for context, but actually those 2 things are fairly challenging. So even though you're only doing 2 things, they're going to take you a little bit longer. All right, common mistakes I saw last year. Number 1, including your own arguments. Your arguments do not matter for this assignment. You really should not be making your own arguments. You are only reporting the arguments and conclusions of your sources. Now, that doesn't mean you can't include your own ideas. You can include your ideas only if it is in the form of commentary, okay? And what I mean by that is if you are kind of connecting 2 sources together, obviously that will be your own idea because that won't exist in the source. Also, if you're adding on to what a source said, not necessarily making your own argument, but using that source to add on your own idea. All right, second big mistake, not clearly indicating what is from a source and what is commentary from you. This is huge, okay? Really easy way to avoid this 100% of the time. If it is from a source, if you got information from a source, it must have a citation, no questions asked, no exceptions to that rule, okay? So you can do this in 2 ways. You can start the citation. If you're not doing a source introduction, assuming you've already introduced the source, you can say according to, and then the author's last name with the year in parentheses. Whenever you use an author's name, there should always be a year in parentheses afterwards. Or if you want to make it even simpler, you can just state what the information is from the source. Students living in poverty struggle to overcome those challenges. And then you put the author's last name, comma, year in parentheses at the end. Okay? So those are kind of 2 simple ways. It doesn't take up a lot of words, doesn't eat into your word count. But if it comes from a source, you must cite it. All right. So that's really it. I want to dive in with an example to show you. And I'm going to start by reading the scoring guide. We already know that this essay about Cambodian women in the workforce was a perfect scoring essay. So we know it's a 6, but let's find out why College Board or the AP scores gave this a 6 for argument. So the report earned 6 points in row 2 because it consistently provides insightful analysis of arguments derived from the sources. Okay, what does that mean? For example, on page 1, the report notes the cultural power of the Chebop and links this to national identity within the context of a French colonial past. The rest of the paragraph teases out the conflict between a text that is important to national identity, but that dismisses women's contributions. Another example in the second paragraph on page 4 questions the statistical argument provided in a journal article. So basically what the scorers say is that when they read this paper, the AP seminar student clearly understood the argument that each source was making and communicated that clearly to the reader. There's a big difference between what is being described here versus I've read papers where it's clear the student just took a piece of evidence from a source. Because if you just take a piece of evidence, especially just a quotation, you do not indicate that you actually know what that source is about, right? So that's why paraphrasing and summarizing arguments is so much better than just cherry picking quotations. Believe me, I get it. Cherry picking quotations is much, much easier. It requires a lot less work than understanding the entire argument, okay? But that's really going to hurt your score when it comes to argument. So I'm almost out of time, but there are 4 examples here with the rationale. I highly encourage you to check those out. And remember, if it comes from a source, you need to cite it. If it's your idea, no citation. Good luck, guys, and send me any questions you have via Remind or email.